All right, the debate's been going on as long as guns have been around. Whether to use a copper bullet, a lead bullet, and then within the lead bullets, you're gonna use a bonded bullet or like a match grade cup and core type bullet. A lot of folks come up with very strong opinions about which one is best for what animals, at what ranges. But if you really try to dig down into it and search the internet, there's not like a definitive answer out there. So today, I'm out in Townsend, Montana with my buddy and colleague, Garrett Long, and we're gonna do a little shooting into some ballistics gels and hopefully clear up the debate a little bit. All right, so here's the test. We're gonna be shooting 3 different bullets. 1 copper bullet, 1 cup and core lead bullet, and 1 bonded lead bullet. For copper, we're using the 120 grain trophy copper, designed for accuracy and weight retention in a non-toxic projectile. For the cup and core, we have the 135 grain Burger Hybrid Hunter, designed for extreme accuracy and fragmentation on impact. And lastly, for our bonded lead bullet, we're using the 130 grain Terminal Ascent, which undergoes a manufacturing process which bonds the jacket to the lead core, increasing weight retention and structural integrity. While the weights of these 3 bullets are slightly different, they are going to give us the most realistic comparison of what you would be shooting in the field. Garrett is going to be shooting his competition rifle in a 6.5 Creedmoor. The Creedmoor is a great all-around cartridge and in our opinion has a combination of speed and weight that makes this test applicable to other popular calibers. We are going to be shooting ballistic gels that are 6 inches wide, 6 inches tall, and 18 inches deep. And to make this test as realistic as possible, we have 1 mold that is purely ballistics gel, and the other has been molded around a 4-inch wide whitetail scapula. Synthetic gels don't exactly emulate what a bullet will do when hitting an animal, but by using the same medium, it should give us consistent results for comparing the 3 bullets. For distances, we're going to be shooting at 140, 300, and 500 yards. These 3 distances will give us a realistic comparison to what a rifle hunter would be shooting in the field. Lastly, in order to see what's happening on impact, we are filming with a high-speed camera that records at 20,000 frames per second. By slowing that footage down, we'll be able to see frame by frame what is happening to the bullets on impact. Today, our goal is to shoot each bullet at both types of gels at all 3 distances. Then, we'll go back to the lab and review the footage. You're gonna do the shooting, not me, because you actually shoot. You're one of the few people that I know that shoots thousands of rounds annually. You actually shoot competitively, and that's even just for an actual competition. How many rounds is that over the weekend?
Yeah, like 200 rounds. Yeah, I always figure 200 rounds for shooting and then another 100 to get ready for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so a whole bunch of shooting. You do a bunch of big game hunting too.
Yeah.
What do you think we're gonna see with our different bullets and when we're shooting into this gel?
Yeah, man, I think I have some theories. We know lead likes to come apart. However, that comes with some penetration issues, right, at range.
Right, because everybody's heard the one horror story of where it only goes in barely through the hide, explodes, and never even reaches the vitals.
Stops on the other end of the scapula or something. So what I'm thinking we're gonna see is on bone at distance, lead is going to have a lot less penetration. On bone at distance, I think you're gonna see copper have still pretty decent penetration, decent expansion. I think you're gonna see something similar out of the bonded. The real interesting thing is gonna be when we're not shooting bone, if that copper will still expand.
Well, let's get to shooting. It's getting hot already.
I like it.
The camera is hot. We are ready when you guys are.
All right, I'm going to gel.
I think it's dead center.
Green light, we're ready to fire.
Corey, what do you see?
Go right, inch and a half low. Got 3 shots. Yeah, that's a hit on the scapula. Great.
We're in business.
Ooh. Got it that time.
Or you're clear to go check it out.
But that just went right through the middle of that scapula and just exploded the whole thing. It's just in pieces. It looks like a puzzle.
Man, I'll be honest, this is kind of opposite of what I thought I would see.
All right, Garrett and I are done doing the shooting. Now we're at FHF headquarters in Bozeman, Montana, and we're hanging out with Caylen Wojcik, who is pretty much an expert at all things shooting. Used to be a Marine Scout sniper. Now he's the president of Modern Day Sniper. But today, we're gonna look at all the footage that we have. We have the gels here to look at in person as well, and then we pulled out some of the bullets that we'll be able to inspect. Caylen, why don't you tell me what Modern Day Sniper is and kind of what makes you the expert here to talk about the ballistics?
Sure. I joined the Marines at a young age and went into the sniper program. And I learned a lot, obviously, about long-range shooting and what it takes to intentionally connect a bullet at distance. I got out of that and started teaching on my own, private instruction. That eventually led me to work for a company called Magpul, which I'm sure everybody knows.
Sure.
And I developed their precision rifle training program there and did that for about 7 years. And then I decided it was time to kind of branch out and go on my own way, which eventually led us to formulate Modern Day Sniper. And I'm a partner at Modern Day Sniper with Philip Vallejo. Modern Day Sniper is snipers that are training modern day riflemen.
Cool. So you've gotten to look at a lot of this stuff over and over and over,
Yeah.
and seen what bullets do, what they look like, etc. All right, so let's start off with looking at the comparison of all three on one screen at 500 yards. This is the bone-in ballistics gel. Up top, we've got the Federal Trophy Copper, which is our monolithic all-copper bullet. In the middle, we've got the Federal Terminal Ascent, which is the bonded lead bullet. And then on the bottom, we've got the Federal Berger Hybrid Hunter, which is the lead cup and core bullet. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Oh man, that shot placement was great.
Yeah,
Even at 20,000 frames per second, it goes through there pretty quickly.
Yep. So this is cool. You can go frame by frame and start seeing exactly what each of these individual projectiles starts to do. The cup and core, the Berger effect,
Yep.
right? It's got an extremely violent expansion.
Yep.
And you can see the bullet completely coming apart. And then you also see the terminal ascent. That bullet's boring a giant hole through that, and you see a lot of the same sort of violent dynamic of the expansion and the hydrostatic shock. And then the Trophy Copper on the top, you see way less hydrostatic shock, and that bullet's just boring a straight hole as well. So they're performing very consistent with what I would expect to see at this range.
That hybrid hunter bullet or the cup and core bullet. I mean, it's really like it blows through the bottom of the plywood underneath it too, right? Like it is a very drastic expansion. But Yanni, if you go through there, I think we can see that bullet start to tumble.
Yep.
Right there.
You can see it sideways, and it's basically what's happening in that instant is the bullet has lost dynamic stability. So it's no longer nose first, and now that's why all of a sudden that bullet is catastrophically failing. It's coming apart, and that's where you see that massive hydrostatic shock wave, which can be deceiving, meaning it can be deceiving as to how effective that is at killing an animal.
Yep. Yeah, and I like the, honestly, the bonded bullet at this yardage. It has a similar, even if it's not as effective, a similar shock to the cup and core, but like you mentioned earlier, it's driving, it like doesn't change trajectory hardly at all.
Yeah.
And as we can see from the bullet itself, it mushroomed perfectly.
And it's going to maintain nose forward flight, right? It's going to maintain its stability so that way it can continue to do what it's designed to do, which is expand, increase its surface area while maintaining its weight to penetrate very deeply and create a massive primary wound cavity.
Yep.
Do you guys want to look at the actual gels now of these
Yeah.
three to
Yeah.
kind of see what
Yeah.
happened? What's interesting here that you don't see on the footage is how differently each bullet did going through the scapula, right? Where the cup and core just like barely cracks it and puts like a little hole through it. And then the other two bullets, the bonded and the copper, literally destroyed those scapulas, like just blew them up.
Yeah, this bonded bullet in particular, that scapula is gone. And I think what we saw from the footage, which is interesting, seeing how these scapulas got hit so hard with the copper and bonded, is that shock wave was a lot closer to the entrance point of the gel, right? So it's like right at the beginning of the block, we see that big balloon effect, whereas the cup and core bullet goes through that scapula and almost seems like it maintains its form until about halfway through the block, and then comes apart where we saw it tumbling there.
From my perspective, these two bullets right here, the copper, the solid copper, and the bonded bullet, they're actually starting their expansion as soon as they impact the medium. Whereas this bullet hasn't, you can see it really hasn't started much of its expansion until after it makes contact with the density of the bone itself, which is then where we see that major catastrophic failure and the bullet starts to come apart and upset itself. Whereas these guys, the bullet's already expanding, so by the time it does hit that scapula, it's increased its surface area already, and it's doing the damage that we see.
The bonded bullet, if we grab that bullet itself, Janis, this bonded bullet, that is exactly what you want to
That's
see.
exactly what you want.
And that's at 500 yards. We know this bullet is traveling about 1950, 2,000 feet per second. And that is just a very impressive expansion.
That's textbook. That's exactly what you want to see.
Now the copper, on the other hand, take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, we just see this, in my opinion, is the downside of a copper bullet. When you lose that amount of speed, you don't have as much expansion, and that's exactly what we're seeing here.
All you're seeing is that ballistic tip get shoved back into the meat of the projectile, and it's not allowing those petals to expand. But the other benefit of that is that bullet is maintaining stability, and it's continuing nose first as it penetrates, and it's creating a pretty significant primary wound channel as well. But this obviously is the better performer just because of the expansion. And that's really where modern hunting bullets that are bonded are starting. This is pretty much the standard, as everybody knows now that that's pretty much what we want in terms of bullet expansion.
All right, let's look at 500 yards, just gel, no bone in the gel. You guys want to just go frame by frame?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea to just kind of see exactly what the bullets are doing.
Barely snuck that one in there, bud.
And look at that. Look at the burger down here. It's doing it. It's doing its
tumbling
thing
right there.
at just about the same distance.
Yep.
I think all three of them have just less of that hydrostatic shock.
Yeah.
You know, when you're just what you're seeing in the gel compared to when it hit the bone, right?
For sure.
And you're right, Janis. It almost just seems like the results are the exact same, just to a lesser degree when you compare bullet to bullet. So, you know, pretty dang big hydrostatic shock from the cup and core. Maybe a little less so, but a straighter trajectory, and maybe more terminal wound channel from that bonded bullet. And then just a lesser degree of hydrostatic shock in the copper bullet.
Yeah, because the copper bullet's not increasing surface area hardly at all.
Right.
As a result.
Yeah, so it's interesting how we're always shooting behind the shoulder, mostly because that's what a lot of people think like the dead center of the vitals is. But it looks like with all three of these bullets, they kind of performed better
Going through shoulder.
going through the bone. All right, let's move on to 300.
15, 15,
Probably in that spot.
9, 18, 20.
Here's 12.
All right, so we're on to 300 yards now. We got the gels out. We got all three gels up on the screen here. You guys just want to watch it in regular slow-mo first, and then we'll go frame by frame?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, federal trophy copper up top, the Federal Terminal Ascent, which is the bonded bullet in the middle, and then the Federal Burger Hybrid Hunter, which is the cup and core bullet at the bottom. Ooh, that's cool how you can see the actual spiral.
And you can see both on the bonded and copper bullet.
Just
Like,
wrecked, it wrecked that scapula.
Yeah, and you can see the bone fragments coming up out of the gel.
Wow.
It is interesting to see, though, that bonded bullet again. It doesn't seem like it's changed flight path at all.
No, it's
And the
pretty
copper
consistent.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you can clearly see on the bonded bullet where that bullet is maintaining nose forward flight and it's continuing with its center of gravity going forward and tracking.
And something that's interesting about that is we know,
See that clearly right there.
right there, it looks perfect. We know that a heavier copper bullet needs a higher twist than a rifle to spin it.
Correct.
What's interesting here, it seems as though since the lead core of the bonded bullet is more central, that maybe that has an effect as it's spinning through the gel and not deviating from course quite as much as the copper.
You can clearly see too here on the copper projectaul.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. It looks like it's starting to yaw.
You can see it's starting to kind of have a nose high attitude.
Yeah.
And now it's starting to upset itself, and now it's on its terminal path, so it's largely unpredictable. So whatever that bullet's going to do is what it's going to do.
What is interesting, though, is at the beginning of the bullets entering the gel, it seems like the copper starts to expand a little bit sooner. And when we look at the gel itself, that scapula is gone.
Oh, it destroys it.
With the Burger bullet, we actually got less penetration at 300 yards than we did at 5. And it just seems as though it has everything to do with it coming apart faster.
Right.
And into smaller pieces.
From my personal experience as a hunter, shooting animals with all three of these different types of projectiles, we're going to see more consistent and reliable performance from a bullet that stays together, shooting it through various mediums or different angles through different mediums, whereas a bullet that's not designed to stay together is going to be, in my personal experience, is going to have more propensity to do something weird, if you will.
Yeah, at that range, it's hard to choose between those two, but I think because of, I don't know, what it did to that scapula was really impressive. The bonded was close, but then the fact that it kind of starts to veer off would make me want to go with the bonded, I think.
Yeah, Janis, let's maybe pull up the clear ballistic and see how that compares.
Ready?
Yeah, again, it just seems similar to what happened at 5. It seems to be the same effects, just to a slightly lesser degree, but bullet to bullet to bullet, they're very similar.
Let's go frame by frame, Janis, and see what we can see where bonded and copper are performing the same. We can already start to see that the hybrid is upsetting, it's losing its stability, and it's coming apart even in gel without any bone making contact with it.
This time, with just the gel and no bone, the copper definitely kept a straighter trajectory.
Yeah, I know people are gonna see the performance of that lead core copper jacket bullet, that big violent expansion, but I think it's deceiving. I think it's deceiving in terms of, you know, what damage is actually occurring inside the critter and how often is that going to work under a wide variety of different circumstances versus how often are we going to get this performance from the bullets that hold their shape and hold their weight.
Yeah, the bonded and the copper are just going to be more consistent.
I agree. That's my personal position.
Okay, let's go to 100 now. Okay, before we look at that, let's watch the footage. Same thing, except at 140 yards now.
A lot of similarities here.
I will say, out of all of them, though, I think the copper is the most violent at this yardage.
Especially what it does, I mean, yeah, what it does to the bone. I mean, look, there's just bone fragments flying everywhere.
Let's take it frame by frame.
Sure.
Yeah, still you can see the cup and core projectile. Still, it comes apart about 2/3 of the way through. And I think it's also safe to say that at 100 yards, shooting an animal with any 3 of these projectiles, it's going to be an effective tool.
I'd say though, I think at 140 yards, watching the footage and looking at these gels, I mean, this scapula on this gel is gone. Similar to bonded, but even more so here. I probably go with copper at 140.
Those are a cool test, guys. Because like you said, I don't think anybody's done it to this extent
Yeah.
up to this point.
I mean, we were just generally curious too, right? We talk about this stuff all the time, but a lot of it's speculative, or maybe you find a round in an animal one time, you know, you had an animal get away from you and you blink a bullet, maybe you hit it behind the last rib, right? This is a great test to see, you know, really what's going on in there.
Well, thanks for coming, Caylen. That
You're
was
welcome.
great, man.
I'm super stoked that you guys had me, and I very much appreciate it.
This test can't account for all of the factors of a real hunting situation. But this test has shown me a couple of important things. Bonded bullets expand more consistently than the copper or cup and core bullets. It ranges inside 300 yards. The copper bullet seems to expand faster on impact. Cup and core bullets, although unpredictable, seem to have a bigger shock factor about halfway through the gel, but with far less penetration than the bonded or copper projectiles.
Like it hit the scapula.
My biggest takeaway is how hitting bone seems to intensify the effect that the bullet had on the ballistics gel. Hitting a shoulder bone might not be a bad thing. It actually might be a good thing. If I had to choose one style of bullet based on what we saw in this test, I'd have to go with the bonded bullet. Overall, it was the most consistent in expansion, penetration, and damage.